What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Kingdom Crew podcast. I am your host, Josh Fan of ShowMeFootball.com, covering your Kansas City Chiefs. And today I am joined by Michael Darcy of KC Sports Report and Bleacher Report. As always, it's been a while since we've done an episode, Michael. I know we've both been pretty busy, but what better time to talk about the Kansas City Chiefs than after a loss? And what better time to do a podcast episode just mere hours after having a tooth pulled? Because that's what just happened to me. I just had a tooth pulled. You might not be able to tell, but if I start slurring my speech towards the end of the episode, you know why. Because things are pretty wonky back there right now. It's still numb. I don't know what's going to happen, guys. Hopefully we make it through the episode.
This is the John flu game. This is your flu game.
Yeah, pretty much. My teeth, they're falling apart, kind of like the Kansas City Chiefs offense. We'll talk about it. But we'll start there. We both did our post games on the Eagles game. We're past that. We can talk about any game really, because again, it's been a few weeks since we've recorded anything. So we're just kind of analyzing the state of the Chiefs right now. That's what we're focusing on. That's what today's episode is going to be about. Pretty much all topics are on the table. But here's the thing, Michael. The last time we did an episode was that Sunday night game, the first game against Denver several weeks ago. That was before the bye week as well. And in that game, when we were on here, we were talking about a dominant win over the Denver Broncos, but that's when we started to become just a little bit worried about this offense. Now, I remember I said, I'm struggling to find anything optimistic or to be optimistic about this offense. And I remember you weren't quite there yet with the offense. You weren't pushing the panic button. Mm-hmm. Neither was I, but still, I was like, we're getting pretty far into the season now. What's going on? This offense isn't showing many signs of life. And now we have back-to-back games in which the Kansas City Chiefs have failed to score in the second half. In fact, I think, is this their third game in a row? I think it might be their third game in a row that they haven't scored in the second half.
The Chiefs haven't scored a second half touchdown since October 22nd, which we are recording this on the 22nd. So it has been a literal month.
Yeah. Wow. That's crazy. I mean, of course there was a bye week that was in there, but still, I mean, pretty shocking. And just not what you expect out of this offense at all. But let's start there, Michael. Fast forward to now. Where are you at with this offense? Are you pushing the panic button?
Yes and no. I think I've pushed the panic button in a sense of this is what they are. We've been talking about for a long time that, maybe they can figure it out. Maybe the wide receivers can fix it and they can turn into a serviceable or a good unit. I'm kind of past that point. I still think, actually, I just did a stream for Bleacher Report talking about if the Chiefs could win a Super Bowl with this current wide receiver group. And my answer to that was yes, because I think our defense is that good. And as long as they could fix, maybe some of the turnovers, which have plagued this team for the better part of the last 2 years, they have a -5 turnover differential. If they could fix that, they've got a chance, especially because this AFC is just up for grabs and nobody's really that good in the AFC. But man, this wide receiver group is the worst wide receiver group in the NFL. It is really bad. That Monday night game against the Eagles was showing the entire world that this unit is just piss poor. You had guys dropping the ball left and right. I'm sure we're going to talk about the MVS drop, which would have been the go-ahead game-winning touchdown. The Justin Watson 4th and 25 drop where the ball just went right through his hands. Justin Watson was dropping the ball all night, but it's really sad to see this unit go out like this, especially because last year, the only difference was Juju Smith-Schuster, and you added Rashee Rice. So why is it that the unit is so bad? But, to answer your question, am I pushing the panic button? I mean, yeah, I think this is what the Chiefs offense is. Now, they might be able to clean it up for 2 or 3 games in the playoffs, or maybe not even fully clean it up, but catch the football, and maybe that changes the outcome. But no, this is what the Chiefs offense is. We're going to see a lot more ugly games this season where they win or lose by like a score of 24-21 or 27-24. It's going to be a lot of close scoring, ugly games where you're never going to feel comfortable with the offense out on the football field.
That's an interesting take. I agree with a lot of parts. I also disagree with some parts. So to quote Carrington Harrison, or to kind of take from him, because I do quote him a lot on the show,
Yeah.
but he said that because you mentioned turnovers, that's a big part of it, of course. He mentioned that this year, so in years past, the Chiefs have been able to overcome turnovers even when they do commit turnovers, just because the talent was there on offense. But the talent is no longer there on offense to overcome those turnovers. So it's like anytime you do get a turnover, like the Chiefs did against the Philadelphia Eagles, you get a loss because the Eagles are too good to be doing that against, and you need to score on these red zone drives. If you're getting in the red zone, like you need to be coming away with points, because otherwise you're not going to be able to make up for it later. We've seen multiple, game winning attempts, or sorry, game winning attempts this year, in which the Chiefs were not able to pull it off, like week 1 against the Lions. Patrick Mahomes hit Sky Moore pretty much in the hands against the Lions in week 1. That would have gotten a first down. They couldn't do it. Then there was again this week with Justin Watson against the Denver Broncos. They just kept turning the ball over. And that one, they weren't able to put together a game-winning drive. And it just feels like this year, as opposed to years past, that the Kansas City Chiefs aren't able to put together that clutch game-winning drive. They don't have the talent for it. They don't have the receivers for it anymore. And so when you're getting in the red zone, again, you have to be coming away with points, or at the very least, not turning it over. And that's the tough part. And yes, turnovers are a huge issue. However, even with the turnovers, like, okay, the Chiefs were really bad with turnovers last year too. I remember you said that on your Bleacher Report post game, that even last year this team was not great with turnovers. But also, last year the offense was never as bad as it was this year. This
Yeah.
offense is not very good. Now I know going into that game, the broadcast is like, the Chiefs are the number 8 offense in the league. Technically, by the numbers, they're still an 8 or a top 10 offense. They don't feel like a top 10 offense. The problems with them feel different than in the past. This doesn't feel fixable to me, and that's why I think I am pushing the panic button. This doesn't feel fixable. The wide receiver play doesn't feel fixable. I can give this team the benefit of the doubt that they'll stop turning the ball over, because they've proven in the past they can stop doing that. They were bad last year, got to the postseason, they stopped turning the ball over, they won a Super Bowl. Guys like Travis Kelce who are fumbling, I can give Kelce the benefit of the doubt that he'll stop fumbling. Patrick Mahomes, I can give him the benefit of the doubt that he'll stop throwing horrid interceptions. This wide receiver group, I cannot give them the benefit of the doubt that they're going to improve, because I have no reason to believe that. And you also said, how does the wide receiver room get so bad when you simply take away Juju and you add Rashee Rice? Like, what makes it so much worse? And I think for the longest time, because you're not the only person to say that, and I think people are underestimating the impact of a guy that gave you 900 yards receiving last year.
Yeah.
Rashee Rice is not giving you 900 yards receiving. I wouldn't bet on him hitting that total. No one else on this team, besides Travis Kelce, potentially, is giving you 900 yards receiving. I was also listening to 610 yesterday, and they were talking about how last year Juju and Kelce pretty much combined for 2,000 yards. 2 guys, 2,000 yards. Is there 2 guys that can combine for 2,000 yards on this year's team? I don't think there is.
No.
Like the passing game is just not there. I don't see it with this group. And sure, the defense is fantastic. I love having a defense again. This defense is really fun to watch. But even against teams like the Eagles, you're going to have to score points. I don't care how good your defense is. That offense on the other side of the ball is way too good. Eventually, they're going to find a way. And that's exactly what happened. You watched that game, Michael. You just knew it was coming. You're like, how long can the Chiefs hang on to this 10-point lead? How long is this going to last? 17 points is not going to get it done against against a team like the Philadelphia Eagles. It's not going to last. They're too good. You have to put up points. You cannot go scoreless in the second half. And I've seen people say, Josh, this team doesn't have to score a bunch of points anymore because the defense is so good. We're not asking them to score a bunch of points anymore, though.
Yeah.
I am not asking the Kansas City Chiefs to score 30 points a game, 40 points a game. Is it too much to ask for them to break 24 points? And is that too much? Because it's been a struggle for them to hit that this year. And 24 points beats the Eagles. 24 points and you beat the Philadelphia Eagles, but this team cannot do it. They're incapable. I see Patrick Mahomes pressing constantly because nobody is open. And a majority of their offensive drives kind of go like this. hand off to Pacheco on first down, get a couple yards, back-to-back passing plays. Patrick Mahomes can't find anyone open, and he either runs for a first down or hits Justin Watson for some miracle first down. That's the offense. That is the offense right now. That's not sustainable. It's not going to work. And when you face teams like the Eagles in the play or in the postseason in January and February, those teams are going to be able to put up points. Most of them. You're going to have to be able to match that. I don't care how good your defense is. Yes, this defense is awesome, and I would have trusted them to stop the Eagles if MBS had caught that ball and the Chiefs took the lead. Of course, the Eagles were going to have a chance to answer back, but I had faith in this defense to stop them for the first time in a long time.
Yeah.
The defense is great. I'm not arguing that. But at the same time, there's just you're not going to win a Super Bowl with that model. It's not going to work. You have to put up points, and this team just feels incapable of putting up points. Anytime they get into a third and long situation, I have like zero faith that they're going to convert, and that is a stark contrast from Chiefs teams of the past, where it's like, oh, 3rd and 15, no big deal. Who on this team is converting a 3rd and 15? It's like Justin Watson, it feels like kind of the only guy. And even he's like a 50-50. He might catch it, he might drop it. So I don't see it with this wide receiver group. I don't feel like it's good enough to win a Super Bowl. Now, I'm not saying that it can improve. I'm not saying there's zero chance of that, but I'm gonna need to see it.
Yeah. And that's a fair criticism to have because over the last 9 weeks, they've not given you any reason to be optimistic. They've been really bad all year long. They lead the league in drops with 26 drops. They had 5 against the Eagles. And that's unacceptable because another thing that, I talked about on the Bleacher Report stream is that you have guys, take the drops out of it. You have guys like MVS and even Justin Watson that are veteran wide receivers in this league making mental mistakes like they're their first year. Like that's unacceptable. You cannot have that and expect to be a cohesive unit because you need guys like MVS and Justin Watson to lead the charge. Maybe not in terms of skill set and receptions, but at least, being in the right place mentally. How many times over the past 4 years have we talked about how Mecole Hardman ran the wrong route or stopped running or something, how he was never on the page with Patrick Mahomes? We talked about it seemingly every week, and that's why he never really lived up to being the wide receiver that we thought he could be. I think part of it, and I think this is a big part of it that we're not really talking about, the Chiefs are making a mistake in who they are giving the targets to. Justin Watson had 11 targets on Monday night. He had 5
career
catches,
high.
a career high, 11 targets for 5 receptions. He should never, ever, 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 ever be your most targeted receiver option. Never. It should never, ever have to be a thing unless everybody else gets injured and he is the only guy that you can throw to. That is unacceptable. I refuse to believe that Rashee Rice and Kadarius Toney are useless to this offense if you gave them 7 or 8 receptions a game or even like 9 targets. I guarantee you that if you gave Rashee Rice 11 targets, he'd catch 9 of those balls for 89 to 100 yards. And who knows what that does for this offense. So I refuse to believe that it is all of the wide receiver's fault. Part of it is play calling and scheming because Kadarius Toney's been a no-show this year. And this has been a problem because I refuse to believe that he is just a gadget wide receiver. He's got more in the tank. He's got more of a skill set. And the Chiefs are not utilizing him. In most of these games, he's getting like 1, maybe 2 targets. And that's it. It's like, that's how much you're going to utilize a guy that clearly has more talent than everybody else on the field. And you're just going to waste that. Like, this has been a problem with Andy Reid and, Eric Bieniemy in the past, but now Matt Nagy. The Chiefs have never utilized their weapons properly. We've always had complaints with, you're not running the ball enough, or, when you're running the ball in the wrong spot. And with the wide receivers, like we were really curious in the past, like, why aren't we seeing guys like Mecole get more of a sample size? Or I know Josh Gordon was the guy that we talked about a lot. Like, why is Josh Gordon not getting enough, opportunities? That one ended up being legit. But even then, it's like we've had guys in the past that you just felt like needed a shot, an opportunity, and they would prove something. And right now, I don't think that Kadarius Toney and specifically Rashee Rice are getting enough of a sample size to show anything. Because right now, Josh, I'm going to ask you this question. Who do you want being targeted the most? And he cannot be named Travis Kelce.
Rasheed Rice and Kadarius Toney. I think everyone else needs to be well. Okay, Justin Watson can be out there because Justin Watson obviously is being thrusted into a role that he shouldn't be in. But I still think he deserves playing time. He's even proven me wrong this year. He's been better than I expected. Everyone else, their ass can get nailed to the bench. Sky Moore, I'm done with him, dude. I'm so done. And I've been done with him for a while. Now, I know you were kind of on the opposite end, but like, do you really have any confidence that Sky Moore's ever going to have like 100 yards receiving in a game? Like, honestly.
I think Sky Moore is a bum. I want to preface that by saying I think Sky Moore is a bum. But I looked at his targets. He's not getting targeted either. So at the end of the day, like you're not even giving guys like you know how and specifically in the NBA, if a guy messes up or gives up, a cheap foul or misses a shot, sometimes you go right back at him to get him engaged. And so he'll make that shot and he'll have the confidence to keep going. The
Sure.
Chiefs need to at least go to Sky Moore. And, if he messes up, he messes up. But it almost doesn't seem like they're trying to get him involved because while we're complaining about him being a no-show and not contributing, he's not even I think I saw his snap count. He's not really even playing. He's getting 2 targets a game. And I don't care who you are. You could be Tyreek Hill. If you're getting 2 targets a game, you're not really going to make anything of that opportunity.
Well, I have noticed in a few games since the last time we did an episode that they will target him like very quickly, maybe 2 times at the beginning of the game or something. They do this with Rasheed Rice as well. And then they just all kind of disappear as the game progresses on. Like Rasheed Rice, they got that quick reception to him early against the Eagles, went for like 15 yards. He broke a guy's ankles and then just kind of quiet for the rest of the night. Now, Sky Moore, I think that's because he can't get open. They've
Yeah.
James Palmer of NFL Network even mentioned how he's struggling to beat man coverage. Like Sky Moore just is not getting open. He'll get his couple of manufactured targets and then he just kind of disappears the rest of the game. I think Rasheed Rice can get open. I think he has been getting open. I just think he's not getting the snaps that he needs. Sky Moore is out there getting cardio. He's gotten the snaps. He's been given opportunities. Like we've seen enough of him. It's been almost 2 seasons of Sky Moore, and he's given you essentially nothing. Rasheed Rice already has more career receiving yards than Sky Moore. Okay, Rasheed Rice is better.
Yeah.
So I think you need to live and die with your best talent on the field, your best guys on the field. And I've been an MVS defender because I think Chiefs fans are complaining about the wrong guy when it comes to MVS because he's another guy similar to Justin Watson that's being thrusted into a role that he shouldn't be in. He's an ideal wide receiver 3. He's become a wide receiver 1 by default. But that said, you can't drop that ball, dude. Like, I can't defend you after that. I can't defend that one. You have to catch that. Sorry, it's plain and simple.
Yeah.
But these wide receivers, man, I just don't think they're good enough. And I don't know if the answer is within this group. I don't know if these guys can get it done. I don't have a reason to believe that. I haven't seen it so far. But if we are going to find out, I think if we're going to get an answer to that question, it's only going to be found out if the Chiefs actually put their talent on the field. I am tired of seeing Sky Moore and the MBS go out there and have a combined 2 catches for 12 yards. I'm done seeing it, man. Like put Kadarius Toney out there now. And I know you mentioned that it's like, how are you not using this guy more than you do? Because it seems like most of the time when he does get the ball, good things happen. Now that one I can understand a little bit because I think they're trying to keep him on ice until the postseason. Similar with like Jerick McKinnon. Like Jerick McKinnon, this guy we've asked, why isn't he getting more usage? I think they're just trying to preserve Kadarius Toney for the long run. But that doesn't explain guys like Rasheed Rice getting 1 catch and then disappearing for the rest of the game. Rasheed Rice should be getting more targets. He should be getting more snaps, plain and simple. And then, so I didn't get a chance to talk to you about this as well, but we gave our thoughts on the Mecole Hardman trade when that happened because that was this team's move to try and bolster the wide receiver room. Now, when we did that video, I noticed, I don't know if you read the comments for that, but we had people calling us clowns saying we don't know what we're talking about. Mecole Hardman lost us the Denver Broncos game. He lost us the Denver Broncos game. And that's exactly why I didn't want to bring him back. That's exactly why I didn't want him returning punts and kicks because I just don't think he's very good at it. And then he was it against Miami. He fair caught it with inside the 5-yard line. Was that
I think
terrible?
so.
Like what? Like okay, part of that is also Dave Tobe's coaching, which we've talked about as well. But also, you're an NFL player. You've done this before. You've been returning punts for a long time. How many times does it need to happen for you to be like, you know what? Maybe I shouldn't field this punt. Maybe I should just let it go behind me. Like, it is not that hard. Like, put your heels on the 10-yard line. If the ball looks like it's going to go behind you, don't move. Don't get it. Don't touch it. It's that freaking simple, Mecole. Like, this is why I didn't want Mecole Hardman on the team. Sure, he gave us that cool moment a few weeks ago against the Chargers where he returned the punt to seal the game-winning drive, or spark the game-winning drive, I should say, or not the game-winning drive, but the game-sealing drive that put us up like 2 scores against the Chargers. But McCole has been a net negative because outside of that play, it's been boneheaded returns, fumbling, or muffing a punt. Like, this is why I didn't want him back on the team. And people are like, "Oh, what are you talking about?" This, like, did you guys not watch McCole Hardman the past 4 years? This is exactly what he did the entire time he was in KC. His entire tenure, he was a failed wide receiver. He's a failed returner. No idea why that was their move. Like, I don't get it. And here's the most frustrating part about the wide receiver struggles, Michael. We could all see it coming. We talked about it before the season. Everyone was like, "Hey, this wide receiver group, maybe Brett Veach should go out and get a veteran." And it's not like they didn't have the opportunity to; they just chose not to. And like even the drops, the Chiefs lead the league in drops. 26 drops, I think it was this year, which leads the league. This is not a shock. Justin Watson led the team in drop rate last year. MVS has a history with drops. Rashee Rice struggled with drops in college. When you bring in a bunch of guys that have a history of struggling with drops, you get a wide receiver core that leads the league in drops.
Yeah.
It's not that hard to figure out why the wide receiver group is struggling.
Yeah. It feels like it's changed though, because it wasn't drops in the beginning. It was like, man, these guys just can't get open. Like,
Well,
and they
that's
still
still a
can't get
problem
open.
too. Yeah.
They still can't get open, but now when they're getting open, they're dropping the foot. It's really just a combination of the worst things. But like, if you're building a bad wide receiver core, you'd put all of these attributes together and you would get the Kansas City Chiefs current wide receiver core. But I completely agree with what you just said. The Chiefs need to die on the hill of having their best talent out there making plays. I'm done with this whole MVS Justin Watson thing. I don't care if Patrick Mahomes has more trust in them, because I said this earlier. What is the point of Patrick Mahomes having more trust in these guys when they have not been proven to be trustworthy in the beginning? Like, at least with Kadarius Toney and Rashee Rice, they offer something. Like, if they caught the ball, Rashee Rice has the speed and quickness to turn like a slant over the middle into a touchdown. Or, Kadarius Toney has an ability to make guys miss that very few guys in the league have. And it just seems like the Chiefs are like, well, we have those guys, but we don't want to use them. It's just like, it makes no sense. And that's why I think that it's a combination of things. It's that they can't get open, they can't catch the football. And from a play calling perspective, the wrong guys are getting the amount of targets that they shouldn't be getting. And part of it is like what you said, where Justin Watson and MVS are forced into a role where, quite frankly, they just shouldn't be. And that's bad roster construction by Brett Veach, quite frankly. Right. But at the end of the day, like, we're in this situation, dog. You might not like it, but you are the number 2 wide receiver or the number 1 wide receiver by proxy. Like, you're just stuck there. So what are you going to do about it? And I think our expectation levels are so incredibly low. Josh, we're just begging for 24 points a game. Give us 24. At least get us in a position where Harrison Butker can give us 10. You know what I mean? Like, it is so bad because when they get in the red zone, they cough it up, and it's just really tough to watch.
Yeah, I agree with you. It is poor roster construction, and it's just bad decision making by Brett Veach. I just think he completely misevaluated the wide receiver position this year. And I've talked about this before, whether it was on my own individual video or on this podcast. I've said it before. I think Brett Veach has a fatal flaw of being way too confident in his own evaluation of players and way too confident in the in-house guys to solve issues on this team. And it's resulted in this wide receiver group because, again, everyone, a lot of fans, basically everyone, was calling for this team to sign a veteran wide receiver before the season began. They didn't do it. And then here we are, and Brett Veach thinks he's the smartest guy in the room. And I'm not saying that we know more than Brett Veach or whatever. Like, he's a great GM. I want to emphasize that because he's won multiple Super Bowls, and I think he really earned the benefit of the doubt after last year. Having the guts to trade Tyreek Hill, hitting those draft picks, all that stuff, like Trent McDuffie. we haven't really talked about him because this is more about us complaining about the offense. But Trent McDuffie looks like an all-pro cornerback this year. He's been fantastic. Like that was a great move by Brett Veach, getting a guy like that in the Tyreek Hill trade. But that being said, there were opportunities to fix this wide receiver group. There are free agents out there, and I just really do not understand the reluctance, the stubbornness to just bring someone in that simply raises the floor of the group. Because if you'd signed, let's just say Jacoby Myers, for example, who is extremely solid, you drastically raise the floor of the wide receiver room. Does it make it great? No, but you can maybe raise it up from being the worst wide receiver room in the league, which is what it is right now. He had a chance to raise that floor, kind of avoid the worst case scenario. And right now we're looking at worst case scenario with this wide receiver room, and there is no one on the horizon. There's no one coming off IR. There's no trade coming. The trade deadline passed. Brett Veach decided not to make a move besides bringing back McCole Hardman, which we all knew was not going to matter. So it's just roster mismanagement. Now, okay, I want to move on to this next aspect of the wide receiver play, because I don't know if you saw people kind of discussing this on social media, but Connor Embry, the Kansas City Chiefs wide receiver coach, he's been under a little bit of flack because it seems like Chiefs fans finally discovered who their wide receiver coach was. And it's Connor Embry, who is a very young coach, a very inexperienced coach. So here's the extent of his coaching experience. And he is responsible for the most inexperienced position group on the team. Connor Embry, this is from the Kansas City Chiefs website, returns for his 5th season with the Chiefs and enters the 2023 season as the team's wide receivers coach after spending 2 seasons as an offensive quality control coach and 2 seasons as a defensive assistant. And then his only other coaching experience is being a high school football coach. Michael, does that resume scream somebody that should be coaching the youngest and most inexperienced position group on the Kansas City Chiefs? Like, okay, I don't want to put all the blame on the guy, and I think he's catching a lot of unnecessary flack because I think position group coaches are honestly overrated at the NFL level.
Yeah.
But that being said, I think what a lot of people have a problem with is getting someone so inexperienced to coach the most inexperienced position group on the team.
I'm going to use a personal antidote for this. When I started at Bleacher Report, a lot of people right away kind of like wrote me off for what I had to say just because of the way I look. I am young. I'm 21 years old. And I think a lot of people, perceive age as lack of knowledge, where that's not always the case. And I'm a firm believer that you can be very young and very good at your craft. And maybe I'm in the wrong for this. Maybe it hits a little too close to home. I don't think really any of this is Connor's fault. What you said about position coaches being kind of useless in the NFL, I think that to a certain extent is the case. But also, what is he supposed? Hey guys, run faster, catch the football. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I just don't really understand how you're going to blame him for any of this. When if you want to blame somebody, maybe blame Matt Nagy and Andy Reid for giving your best wide receiver 2 targets a game. So I think that, listen, Chiefs Twitter just looks for anybody to hit on and just beat up on. But I really don't think this is his fault. Like I said, what is he going to tell him? Run faster, catch the football. Like that's the problem. They can't get separation and they can't catch the football. Like I'm sure he's telling them, hey guys, got to corral that. Hey guys, this is what's happening here. Here's an angle you should take to get separation, and the guys aren't doing it. So, you know what I mean? Like, what is he supposed to do? Go out and run routes himself?
Right. No, yeah, I agree for the most part. I don't think it's all his fault. I still don't think he's the best wide receiver coach in the world by any means, or the best fit for this team. But yeah, I just want to get your thoughts on that. I also know he's a former KU guy, so I'm sure there's some bias there from you. But I mean,
I did know that. I did know that. I don't know if he might have coached under maybe the worst administration though. I don't know if it was Lance Leipold. It might have been Les Miles. Les Miles and anybody that's been associated with Les Miles is probably yikes. Les Miles, for instance, wanted Jamar Chase to be a defensive back because he couldn't catch the football. So, that was at LSU though. So
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny. I know KU fans like to hang a banner for having Jamar Chase committed for like 4
We
days.
did 4 days, man. It was a great 4 days. Fantastic four
uh,
days.
well, okay, but while we're on kind of the angle of blaming coaches, let's take it up a level higher. Matt Nagy, Andy Reid, those guys, the guys that run the offense that are responsible for this offense. Do you think there's do you think there's a lot of issues stemming from that? Because okay, I've seen a lot of people talk about Matt Nagy. Oh, well, this is what happens when Matt Nagy's your offensive coordinator. The Chiefs miss Eric Bieniemy, yada yada yada. Here's my thoughts on that, and then I'll get to you.
Mhm.
But I've said it before. The Kansas City Chiefs offense had stretches exactly like this with Eric Bieniemy as the offensive coordinator. We all remember it. Remember 2021, Eric Bieniemy was the offensive coordinator. Now I think you're seeing that this is Andy Reid's offense. Andy Reid calls the plays, and I know it's Andy Reid calling the plays because nobody else besides Andy Reid would be throwing the ball on 3rd and 2 against the Miami Dolphins when a first down seals the game. Okay? That's Andy Reid for you. His situational play calling makes me want to pull out my hair sometimes. That's how I know it's Andy Reid. But also,
Mhm.
there was a scenario against the Philadelphia Eagles that Patrick Mahomes looks to the sideline. It was 4th down, it's 4th and short, and Patrick Mahomes is looking at who? Andy Reid, and he's begging Andy Reid to go for it. And then Andy Reid's like, "Okay, we'll go for it." Now, if Patrick Mahomes is going to Andy Reid to ask if the team can go for it on 4th down, who do you think's making the play call on that 4th down? It's Andy Reid. Okay, it's not Matt Nagy. This is not Matt Nagy calling the plays. Matt Nagy has an influence on the offense, sure, but I think this is largely Andy Reid's offense. It's always been Andy Reid's offense, but people are blaming Matt Nagy because, well, the wide receiver play sucks, which is the main topic of today's video. Eric Bieniemy had Tyreek Hill, okay, and Juju Smith-Schuster. Matt Nagy cannot make chicken salad out of chicken shit, as a lot
Mhm.
of people like to say. So that's my thoughts on the offensive coordinator and the head coach. What do you think?
I don't understand how anybody thinks this is Nagy's fault. Andy Reid has and will always be calling the plays here in Kansas City. He is the one that makes all the decisions, and like you said, the 3rd down plays where they decide to throw it on 3rd and 2, or go for a little end around jet sweep pitch play on 4th and 1. That's all Andy Reid. That's literally an Andy Reid special. So
Yeah.
it's Andy Reid's problem, and it's Andy Reid's fault. Now, the same way that I'm not going to blame our wide receivers coach, Andy Reid can't tell the guys to get more separation or catch the football and them just
Right.
magically do it. That's them. But when it comes down to the play calling and putting guys in the right position to be successful, that is on him. That is his problem. He directly, like, the success of this offense is directly correlated to who he decides to play in which moments and what he decides to have Patrick Mahomes do. Because, one thing I call back to the 2-minute drill from this Monday night game against the Eagles, where, you know, the only guy that Patrick Mahomes went to outside of Justin Watson, who dropped that 4th and 25, was Travis Kelce. He was the only guy that he targeted because he knew that Travis Kelce was the only person that could catch the football. And even he had a drop in that game. So it's like Travis Kelce is the only guy that Patrick Mahomes truly trusts. And so that's an offensive thing. Like Andy Reid has done a poor job of putting guys in the right position to be successful. And maybe it's because Mahomes trusts certain guys over Kadarius Toney and Rashee Rice, but I think that's a coaching issue.
Yeah, I definitely think that Andy Reid has not necessarily done the offense any favors because Andy Reid also makes the personnel decisions. And
Yeah.
we talked about how already we don't think he's putting the correct guys out there. We're kind of done seeing Sky Moore, MVS, those guys. And Andy Reid certainly makes those decisions. There's no doubt about that. I also think that they could do a little bit more in putting guys in the right situations, like Kadarius Toney is an example once again because they try to like give him handoffs out of the backfield and stuff, which is fine sometimes, and Kadarius Toney can do those things, but Kadarius Toney on a slant is pretty dangerous. Kadarius Toney on a screen is pretty dangerous, and it's like we don't see it that much. We always see like these slow developing um, plays that are a high risk for loss of yards and stuff like that. But I've seen this team push the ball downfield with Kadarius Toney before. Why are they not doing it now? Now, I kind of already addressed my theory on that, but still, you're getting pretty desperate. Like you're losing football games because of this offense. You start you start having to try stuff, and you have to start taking risks. So, yeah, there's some issues there with the coaching decisions, but again, the wide receivers, you can't coach them to stop dropping the ball.
Mhm.
You can't coach them to get separation if players are physically incapable of getting separation or just aren't very good at it. That's not something that can simply be coached up. That's something that takes years of experience and practice and incredible football knowledge. Uh, let's get to Travis Kelsey just a little bit, though, because I definitely think he's important to talk about in this. And you talked about him and how he had to drop. He also had a fumble in that game.
Yeah.
We've said it several times this year. He looks like a 34-year-old tight end. And I just still think it was incredibly irresponsible for Brett Veach to lay this much responsibility on the shoulders of a 34-year-old tight end. He looks like he's getting older. He even came up limping again in this game after a play where he got tackled. He looks just a little bit slower. He's getting doubled and tripled because there's no other threats on this offense. There's no one to take pressure off of him. He's getting mugged at the line of scrimmage. All of this stuff. And then also he has his extracurriculars. And I'm not going to be one of those people that say, "Oh, Travis Kelsey needs to stop with Taylor Swift. This is becoming distracting," or because you knew those storylines were coming. You knew that talk was going to start happening. I really don't have a problem with any of that. There's plenty of guys that go and see family on the bye week. There's plenty of guys that vacation during the bye week. I really do not care. I don't think that has any effect. But I did see an article in which Travis Kelsey talked about how he's been mulling retirement a lot. And I do think that his mind has been on that. I think his relationship with Taylor Swift has almost made him think about what life would be like if he was retired. And I'm not saying Kelsey isn't focused on winning and playing in football games, but I, I just think he's a guy that's in the twilight of his NFL career. And again, I think it was a mistake to give him this much responsibility.
It's just unfair because we've banked on Travis Kelsey for so long, and we knew that he was getting older, and we knew the hits that he was taking. Man, it's incredible that he's even still playing. The amount of hits that he's taken. Look at Rob Gronkowski. The amount of injuries that guy suffered, the significant injuries, the back injuries, the knee injuries, and knock on wood, but Travis Kelsey has not had those issues. And the
Mhm.
fact that, he's been so consistently great for so long, like if there was another guy on this team that could get 1,000 yards, I think it completely changes the dynamic of this offense, because then you don't have to have Travis Kelsey be Superman and try to catch every single ball. And, part of it is very irresponsible because he is 34 years old, but I still think that, he's nearing the end. And I think that as long as we're aware of that and we can start to appreciate his final days, uh, I think it's something that the Chiefs definitely mishandled, but I also think that, Travis also hasn't played very well, and injuries have something to do with that. But I don't think any of it's like, oh, like Taylor's like telling him not to play football or anything like that, or the relationship's becoming a distraction. But I mean, kind of like you
Yeah,
said, maybe he is thinking about life after football, and as he probably should, because he's 34 years old. So I think him and his brother, I mean, you know how much money they're probably making from that podcast. So
Oh yeah.
man, it's once you get older and you sit behind a screen and you talk about, how your life's been, why go out there and take hits from 22-year-olds that are trying to prove a point and stay in this game when, those hits add up and those hits start to hurt. And
Sure.
Travis
Yeah.
Kelsey's taken those hits for a long time, and it's only fair for him to consider retirement.
Yeah, and just looking at his stats this year, he has those 2 games in the middle of the year from the against the Broncos and the Chargers where he had over 100 yards. And those defenses were both terrible. We know Brandon Staley's about to get fired for that defense. I mean, that day has to be coming soon, you'd think. But outside of that, he's failed to break 70 receiving yards in a game. He had 44 yards against the Eagles, 3 catches for 14 yards against Miami. You know, he
Really
just hasn't been
quickly,
performing the same. Yeah,
I,
go
I
ahead.
I looked up Travis Kelce, and the first article is from US Weekly, says Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce are in love, comma, spending holidays together. So it's just like, it's kind of crazy how, man, they've taken our tight end, and I want him back.
They have. Yeah. You know they're urging him to retire too. Those Swifties are watching football games. They've never watched a sport so violent, Michael, and they're like, "Oh my God, Taylor's boyfriend is getting hit and he's getting hurt. He just needs to retire." You would think you think they have any influence on it?
I hope not. I hope not. Or I will be going on a rampage against Taylor Swift fans. I'll tell you that. But I'm trying to
Yeah.
find his receiving stats for this year. This year, he's had 641. Wait. Yeah, 641 yards, which is a far cry from the 1,400, 1,100, and 1,300 that he put up the last 3 years. And there's still time. And he
Yeah.
will probably crack a K. But man,
Unless this like unless he just keeps putting up like 30, 40-yard performances like this every single week. Like I figure he'll probably have another big 100-yard game again at some point, and that would put him in prime position to hit 1,000 yards again this year. Now it might be barely over 1,000. It might be like 1,050 yards, but I think he'll hit it. I think
no.
he's close enough for
For this
sure.
offense's sake, I hope he hits it because right now,
Yeah.
if Travis Kelce's not producing, we're screwed. And it's so important right now, looking at the AFC playoff picture, that you can kind of get it together because even though you've been maybe one of the worst units offensively, in terms of wide receiver play, you still, up until that Eagles loss, held the number one seed in the AFC. And the only reason that Baltimore has that right now is because they haven't had their bye week and they've got 8 wins instead of 7. So, man, you are a good winning streak away from taking back that spot and getting that number one seed. And at that point, it's anybody's ball game.
Well, that brings me to my next thing that I wanted to talk about, which is the fact that the Buffalo Bills do not look very good. Joe
Mm-mm.
Burrow's out for the year. That's happened since the last time we made an episode. The Cincinnati Bengals are no longer a factor. I don't care. Jake Browning is not taking them to a Super Bowl. Even the Eagles game, like we talked about that a lot. The Chiefs should have blown them out, dude. They should have won by multiple scores. I mean, they moved the ball on them so well in the first half. Second half, turnovers were an issue, but the defense was shutting them down for most of the night. Of course, they eventually got that touchdown to take the lead, which I talked about, and how you can't cling on to a 10-point lead for dear life against the Philadelphia Eagles for an entire half of football. It's not going to work. Same thing almost happened against the Dolphins too. We didn't really talk about that too much, but they were up 17-0, and that was also due to their defense getting a defensive touchdown.
They were up 21-0 at half.
Yeah, 21. Yeah, 21-0, and some of those points were from their defense. Okay, so they have their defense to thank for that, or else they may very well lost that game. But also, my point that I was going to make is that the Philadelphia Eagles are a better team than the Miami Dolphins. They have an explosive offense. They're a team that is going to capitalize if you don't score in the second half. And that's exactly what they did. And that's exactly what's going to happen in the postseason. But even the Philadelphia Eagles, man, if you can get this offense together, you should have beat them by multiple scores. The Detroit Lions, they don't scare me. They're not a juggernaut. I don't see like a massive juggernaut in the NFC this year, like the Eagles were even last year. The AFC is wide open. There's no Joe Burrow standing anyway. The Bills are not going to be standing in your way. I don't think the Ravens are all that great. I think they have a lot of weaknesses that can be exposed. They just lost to the Cleveland Browns.
They also
For
just
God's
lost
sake.
Mark Andrews.
Yeah, for the season. So my point is, I would hate to think in a year that the NFL winning a Super Bowl is more wide open than it's ever been, and the Chiefs' wide receiver core might prevent them from winning it all. Because I'll tell you right now, even the MVP award, Mahomes could be winning another MVP, another Super Bowl by a landslide if this team just simply brought in a veteran wide receiver. It's that
He's
simple.
still like top 3 in MVP betting odds.
And he's
And
been
he
having a very disappointing year. He hasn't thrown for 300 yards in a game for like 3 weeks now.
Mhm. Yeah, it just shows you that there's been a lot of ups and downs this season, and if they could just put it together, not even like fully put it together, just just a little bit. Just give us a little bit. Just correct a little bit of the mistakes, and you are by far and away the best team out there because your defense is a problem. It's got a bunch of dogs on that side of this field, and if you could just figure out how to score 24 points a game, you will win the Super Bowl. 24 points. That's the magic number. Get there, you win.
Yep. Yeah. 24 points beats the Eagles. 24 points beats the Dolphins. 24 points beats the Broncos. You know, that other game before. Well, I guess the Broncos did score 24, but the Chiefs, again, McCole muffed it at like the 5-yard line. So,
Yeah.
and defensive turnover, or the defense forcing turnovers and stuff. 24 points beats the Broncos. 24 points beats the Lions in week 1. Yeah, we're not asking you to score 30 and 40 points a game anymore, Kansas City. We're just asking you to break 24 and you win these games. You will cruise to another Super Bowl. Patrick Mahomes will cruise to another MVP if the Chiefs can do that. And they have a chance to do that this week against the Raiders. And then their schedule really opens up to it was a tough stretch there against the Dolphins and Eagles, but you got the Raiders, then Green Bay, then Buffalo, then the Patriots, then the Raiders again, then the Bengals without Joe Burrow, and the Chargers to end the season. You have a margin for error of like 1 loss, but the rest of those games should be wins.
Yeah, and they're probably not going to do this, but I would like you to beat the absolute dog crap out of the Las Vegas Raiders. That would be a nice thing to kind of set the tone and maybe see some wide receiver improvement, or at least just limit the mistakes. And I hope that we see that going forward, or at least in some of the games that, in years prior, even in years that the Chiefs have won the Super Bowl, it's like there's moments where I'm just like, how is this team gonna remember when they almost lost to the Broncos last year in the final week of the season? And you're like, how is this team ready for the postseason? And then they were fine.
Yeah.
So it's like maybe that's the case. I'd much rather go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, I talked about that and how this team has kind of, again, earned the benefit of the doubt from me in a lot of ways over the years of watching them. And I've just kind of learned that usually most of the time this team gets their issues together. But the wide receiver problems just feel different. I don't know if they can figure it out. Like, they came off the bye week and it still was not figured out. Thanksgiving is tomorrow and this team still has not figured it out. I mean, they're kind of running out of time to prove it to me that they can do it because I haven't seen it.
Yeah, and that's fair. I think Dan Orlovsky was talking about it, how he wasn't worried because drops are correctable. This is correctable. I can't remember what the point of the video was, but I don't know. I think a couple of those drops don't get dropped, and who knows what the game's like. So it's like, I know that's a terrible hypothetical or a what if, but maybe they don't catch those, or maybe they do catch those balls moving forward. And I don't know. We'll find out. We'll find out good or bad. And that's kind of the frustrating thing. But it would really suck in a year where it is wide open to not capitalize. And it also sucks that you're wasting a year of Patrick Mahomes' prime. So,
yeah, by giving him this wide receiver group. I mean, what happened to the days when Brett Veach constantly talked about how he's always going to be surrounding Patrick Mahomes with weapons? What happened to that?
I think financial issues happened, and and this is maybe not the right time to bring it up, but maybe the way this Chiefs defense has been playing might have shown him that, hey, we don't need Chris Jones.
No, okay, I knew you were going there. No, we're not. No.
We don't have to. We don't have to talk about it now. And I'm not even saying that I believe that.
Well, someone did. I was talking to one of my buddies in my Twitter DMs, and he was like, "Oh, I'd trade Chris Jones if it meant we get a top-notch receiver." But I'm like, Chris Jones isn't even the thing keeping us from getting a receiver. Again, this team had opportunities to get a receiver. They just chose not to. And we don't need a top-notch receiver. Like, I know people are dreaming about like a Brandon Ayuk scenario or something like that. You don't even need a Brandon Ayuk. You just needed some sort of veteran wide receiver that raised the floor of this team. Jacoby Myers, I'll go back to that example. What was stopping you from signing him? What? And he would have been perfect. He would have been a perfect fit for this team. So I just think, and I think Chris Jones isn't the guy that should be getting talked about in hypotheticals, especially after that 3-sack performance against Philadelphia. Like, he was just dominant. He was a monster. He's
Yeah.
still the MVP of this defense. And I just think there's still plenty of money for the Chiefs to go out and get a wide receiver even next offseason. Like, if they cut MVS, like, that gives them a bunch of money. Extending Chris Jones after this 1-year deal will still free up some money. So, you know, the team will have opportunities, and you don't need to gut the defense to do it.
So I
But
just looked
it
it up.
seems like Brett. Go ahead.
DeAndre Hopkins has 650 yards and 4 touchdowns off of 42 receptions.
Yeah, it'd be fantastic for this team right now.
Yeah.
And he's
It'd be
rotting
crazy.
away there in Tennessee. Also, Adam
That's
Thielen is
his
rotting
fault.
away in Carolina. That would have been a good one too.
You probably could have gotten Adam Thielen for dirt cheap too.
Hmm. Yeah, I really don't. I don't understand it, but we'll see, man. They got an opportunity this Sunday against the Raiders, so we'll see it. We'll see what
Yeah.
happens. But I think we'll go ahead and wrap it up there. We've been going for almost an hour now, and we've just been dunking on these wide receivers. So hopefully the wide receivers come back and dunk on us after this week's episode. I don't know. We'll see, but we'll wrap it up there. But before we sign off, of course, Michael, why don't you let everyone know where they can find you?
You guys can find me on YouTube at KC Sports Report. A lot of the stuff from Bleacher Report gets posted on YouTube. So if you haven't seen me on Bleacher Report, it's on the mobile app, but it's all on YouTube too. So just go to KC Sports Report. And then the personal social medias are Instagram and Twitter at the Michael Darcy.
And all of that will be in the description as always. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe so more Chiefs fans can find this. You can check out my work on showmefootball.com and arrowheadaddict.com. Make sure you go check out the audio version of the podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all those platforms. And we'll be coming back at you guys with a new episode hopefully next week. But we'll see you all in the next one. Go Chiefs.